The following is a production of Notch 6 Media.
It's the Notch 6 online podcast, episode number 33. In this episode, I talk with Alan Arnold, head of advertising for O-Gauge Railroading magazine, but we're not talking about ads, we're talking about his incredible layout and collection. It's a tale of shower door glass, jello molds, and building skyscrapers, and it's all ahead on this episode of Notch 6.
This is the Notch 6 online podcast. Notch 6 is the podcast dedicated to O-Gauge trains. Whether you're collecting, operating, or just getting started, Notch 6 is your home for O-Gauge news, events, and interviews. Now here is your host, Derek Thomas.
Well, welcome to another episode of the Notch 6 online podcast. Whether you're new to O-Gauge trains, whether you've been doing this for a long time, welcome to the show. Guess what? We still play with our trains during the summer when no one else is. We're glad to have you along for another brand new episode, and boy, it feels like it's been a little while since I've sat down and done this, and in reality, it's been a few weeks. And so we're incredibly busy, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that in just a second. But happy to be here for episode number 33. We're going to talk with Alan Arnold from O-Gauge Railroading magazine, and I've worked with Alan for probably about 8 months now on the O-Gauge Railroading Facebook page, and even I learned a lot about Alan's background, his incredible collection, and you're going to get some great tips on how he put together his layout. And then we're also going to post photos of his layout on our Facebook page, which is facebook.com/Notch6. And just for you users that don't use Facebook, you do not have to have a Facebook account to view the photos. You can still visit that page, and you should be able to see the photographs. So little preface there. What's going on in the world of Notch 6? Well, it's funny that it's basically summer. It's June, obviously. And I'm probably, I feel like the busiest I've been all year in terms of train-related things. And so we'll fill you in on a couple of projects here real quick before we take off with the interview. Number one is it's LCCA convention time in basically a month, actually less than a month. In a month, the convention will be over. It's the 26th of June today when I'm sitting here recording this. So a month from now, the convention will be over. Everybody will be heading home, and that'll be the end of it. But we've been leading up to this for over a year now. Our LCCA modular section is almost finished. The scenery's almost done. I've got a couple of details to finish in terms of painting lines on the roads around the station, finishing the parking lot, and some fun little details that will promote Notch 6 and tease a few people who are friends of mine at Lionel. So, yeah, it's going to be fun. But we're in the home stretch. I'm gearing up stuff to have Madison Poster Company at the show, and then also gearing up to do a week of brand new shows for Notch 6. And if you followed the show last year, you know that we do a lot of work in under a week. Some of the things that we already have planned, I'll be riding behind Nickel Plate 765 on Monday, and we'll be recording interviews from the train. We'll be talking with the folks from Lionel, Mike Phillips, Matt Ashbaugh, Howard Hitchcock, Mike Gregan. The usual suspects will, of course, be with Al Colas and Dennis DeVito all week from the LCCA. And we have a few other surprises planned for you. So we're excited for that. So that's keeping me on my toes. Let's see, two other things that I think are maybe you guys will find this interesting. Number one, I have gone from buying toy trains to buying full-size locomotive parts. And I think my wife is a little dismayed that suddenly we're buying full-size locomotive parts. But to make a long story short, I got an email about a week ago of a business here in the Indiana area that is scrapping out a bunch of Union Pacific B40-8 diesel locomotives. And I got the bright idea that, hey, you know what? Everybody can use a couple of control stands, some bells, a horn. And so on a whim, I shot the company an email, and we worked out a deal. So by the time this recording gets out to the public, I will have a couple of B40-8 control stands, a bunch of bells, a horn, and a wife that I don't know what she's going to do, but I hope she loves me no matter what, and I think she does. And I say that she's been incredibly supportive of this hobby, and we'll have her on the show at a future point. Every month she asks, so when are you going to bring me on the show? I said, let's wait and see how it plays out. We'll have Christy on the show at some point, and Christy is my wife, and she can give you her perspective on living with the toy train guy. So that's project number one, is buying full-size locomotive parts, which is a completely different ball of wax than buying toy trains. And then the second one, and this applies more to you guys, and so this is where I'm going to make kind of the second formal announcement of this, is that starting in July, for 3 weeks only, I have a very special offer for Notch 6 listeners and toy train enthusiasts in general. For a long time, I feel like there has been a lack of, toy train clothing, I guess would be the right way to say it, or at least something that your wife will let you wear in public. And so about, almost 2.5 months ago, I started working on a project that is finally finished and ready to put out. We are going to have a vintage Madison hardware t-shirt. And the cool thing is we've got a couple of different things going on. Number one, that we have permission from Mr. Richard Kughn himself to use the Madison hardware logo. This has his blessing. Then number two, we're going to use some of the proceeds from these shirts to do some good. Proceeds from the shirt, or some of the proceeds from the shirt, will go to the Lionel Collectors Club of America to further their kids programs, whether that be the modular layout group. We've just been really specific in saying, hey, we want this to go to youth activities. So a portion of the proceeds from those shirts and sweatshirts and long-sleeved shirts will go to the LCCA to help further their mission. So these will go on sale around the 10th of July, and it will run for 3 weeks only. So once those 3 weeks are up, we're going to fill the orders and send them out, and that's going to be it. So if you want a t-shirt and you want to know when the ordering is going to start and how to order, you need to go to notch6.com and sign up for our email list. I will put out the ordering information through our email list and on our Facebook page, which is facebook.com/notch6. And I expect that ordering to open around the 10th of July, and at that point we'll post all the designs up on the Facebook page so you can get a look at them and see what the t-shirts are going to look like. So that's it. I'm not going to talk too long because we have almost a 50-minute interview to get to. So this is the last you're going to hear from us until we're at the LCCA convention in July. One more push. If you're going to be there in July, come find me. Say hey to me. Can't wait to talk to you guys. It's a big month ahead for us. But for now, we have Alan Arnold, the ad man from O-Gauge Railroading Magazine, talking about his incredible collection. I hope you guys enjoy the interview, and we will see you in July.
This is Notch 6, your first source for breaking news and in-depth interviews in the world of O-Gauge.
Welcome back to the Notch 6 online podcast. It's the beginning of summer, and we're going to have a little bit of fun today with a guy that if you read O-Gauge Railroading, you may not know him specifically, but you know his work. I affectionately know him as Ad Man. You know him as Alan Arnold. Alan, welcome to the program. It's great to have you along.
Hi, Derek. I'm just really, really happy to be here with you today, and I appreciate you taking time to include me in your broadcast.
Well, we're glad to have you along, and today we're not going to talk so much about your work, but people are going to learn a lot about you and the fact that you have been in this hobby a long time. You have an amazing layout that we get to talk about today. We get to talk about your collecting a little bit, and so we'll talk a little bit about your work with O-Gauge Railroading, but I think Alan is somebody that you guys need to know from the standpoint of he really is a true O-Gauge guy and cares a lot about this hobby and the future of this hobby. So let's kind of kick this thing off. Tell me a little bit about your background. Did you have an interest in trains growing up, or did it come along later in life?
Well, Derek, I think my interest in trains probably is very much akin to how most of our folks at the average age, the demographics in this hobby. I like others, received a Lionel train at one time, right around Christmas, and that just kind of stuck in my memory. It was my favorite toy. I was about I think, about 4 years old, and the first train I got was a Marx train, a number 400 steam locomotive, which I still have to this day. And then way back in for the Christmas of 1963, my father, for that holiday season, he put together a layout, a Lionel layout on a 4 by 8 foot sheet of plywood. And while my mother and I were visiting relatives and delivering her baked goods that were a tradition during Christmas that my mom did for family and friends, upon our return late that evening, that Lionel layout was sitting next to the Christmas tree in the living room. And of course, my dad's excuse was that Santa, because it was so large, he had to deliver it first as he was out and about on his sled. So I actually received it Christmas Eve of 1963, I believe it was. And it was a 2027 outfit. And then it became a tradition year after year, Christmas after Christmas, to add on to that, and I would get more items. So I think that's probably a very familiar story for an awful lot of people that are involved in the hobby today.
So you were exposed very early in life to Marx and then Lionel, and that's a really great story about your dad bringing the layout into your house. And you're right, I think it's a very traditional story about how people are exposed to the hobby. Now, obviously, you said it was a yearly tradition for a long time. When did it move from a yearly tradition to you thought about, okay, I'm going to make this kind of a full-time hobby?
In the mid-'60s, we left the part of the country that I was born in, which was in northwest Indiana, in a city called Portage, Indiana, which is part of the Chicagoland metropolitan and suburban area. We left there, and my father had purchased 10 acres of land in north central Arkansas. Now, we had never visited Arkansas, but my father had been through this part of the country and fell in love with it and decided that we were going to move there someday. So at the age of 49, he was fortunate enough to own some property that was in the right location, and he sold that and was able to retire, and so we moved to Arkansas. At that point in time, where we moved, there were no Lionel trains, there were no hobby stores, there was nothing. We were in the middle of Newton County, and like I tell people when I tell them this story, the good Lord and the people that lived there in Newton County were the only two that knew where it was, and somehow we landed there. So the tradition of getting trains starting about in the mid-'60s, or actually late '60s, I should say, ended. And then, my interest, just like you heard this story before, became, actually it went in different direction. Obviously, as I grew up, I liked cars, girls, and the trains got packed away, even though occasionally we'd get them out during Christmas and run them. Eventually they were just stored away. Finally, going to college, I majored in architecture, and I always had a fascination with models and miniatures and design and kind of a creative type of interests. And so once I got my degrees at university, I ended up coming home one weekend to announce to my parents that I had my first job, that I could, brag about that I'm actually using my degree. And lo and behold, my father says to me, "Wonderful, you've been going to school for like 7 or 8 years, and it's about time. And do you have time this weekend to go up in the attic and get your junk out of there that your mother has been putting up there all these years?" I had no idea that my mom had saved all of my trains, all of my old toys from the 1950s and 60s. She didn't throw anything away. She was, not like a hoarder like you see on the TV series, but she kept everything that she felt I might want someday, and she just stuffed them up in the attic.
Wow.
I went up there and I found those trains that were stored in a wooden box. The box was about, probably 2 feet square, like a cube, a 2-foot cube. And I opened that up, and I don't know what happened. It was almost like a hand from heaven came down and grabbed onto me and said, wow. And I just got this good feeling looking at those again. And that's where it started. It started at that point, which was, by this time, it was the late 1970s, 79, I believe it was, somewhere in that time frame. And I decided that I wanted to see, what I could do, I guess you might say, with those trains. So I took that box of trains and took it back to my apartment in Fayetteville, Arkansas, right, where the University of Arkansas is, and got the trains out and displayed them on a shelf, and it just kind of blossomed from there.
And the rest, they say, is history.
Well, pretty much, yeah, pretty much. I wasn't able to have really a layout until we left the Fayetteville, Arkansas area, and when I went over to the opposite side of the state, over into the Jonesboro, Arkansas area, where I had a job that involved me teaching. So as I was teaching over there, I was fortunate enough to build a 24 by 30 foot separate building in the backyard where I started a layout in there. That was my first layout. It really didn't get very far before I ended up actually moving back to my hometown in the late 80s, and that's where I've been since. And, that's another story in terms of the development of the layouts here.
Sure. Now, your work now involves toy trains, and we'll talk a little bit about that later with what you do for O-Gauge Railroading. But yet, you found time to build a really, really nice layout. How do you balance the two, and do you still enjoy it?
Oh, yeah. Well, trains, the hobby, toy trains, scale trains, it doesn't matter. To me, it's not a job. I absolutely love it. I ended up, once I moved back to the Mountain Home, Arkansas area, which is where I am today, I started on my first real layout that was kind of, what we would call high rail today. And it was a fairly large layout. About, the current layout I have is approximately 3 times the size of that one. But I was kind of at the height of my collecting mania, I guess you might say. And so I had been busy and was fortunate enough to be able to do so, to collect just about, like I said earlier, everything that you could collect, including everything that MPC made, and Lionel, Inc., and all of the versions of the modern Lionel. I had all of that. I had about 2,000 feet of shelving, display shelving up in my home at that time, and I had all of it on display that I could put up there. So I ended up having a pretty nice layout. I decided to go the urban theme, which a lot of people comment on when they see my layout. Traditionally, most folks go with more of a mountainous, type of theme, the traditional theme that most model railroaders use. Countryside, mountains, bluffs, cliffs. I, being impressed as a young person growing up in the Chicagoland area, and later having architectural background, I wanted to do something different, and so I went with an urban theme. And then when I moved to where I currently live, I had an opportunity here finally build what I consider probably my final layout. And I built a special room for it, approximately 1,500 square feet, and I went all out as far as urban railroading goes.
Right, and the pictures, and we'll get some pictures from you and post them on our Facebook page and hopefully the OGR Facebook page as well. If you've seen pictures of Alan's layout, and we'll show you some pictures on our Facebook page, it really is. It's a cityscape, and not to detour from the layout for a second, but knowing where you grew up in Portage and the time period you grew up, do you remember, going downtown Chicago and getting to see Union Station and Dearborn Station and all of that when it was still around?
Well, I don't remember. We left that part of the country when I was still a youngster in the single digits. Okay. However, we did go into the city to shop. We went into Chicago quite often, and we would take the South Shore many times. If we didn't take the car and go via the Skyway, we would literally go to. My grandfather lived in East Gary, Indiana, which today is called Lake Station, and there was a stop there, and we'd just park our car over at my grandfather's house and walk approximately a half a block to the railroad track and wait for the South Shore, and we'd get on the South Shore and we'd travel into Chicago, where we would then transfer over to the Illinois Central, which, and then on to the L or wherever we wanted to go at that point. So I remember all of that very well. I rode all of those trains and did get an opportunity to see some of the stations there in Chicago. It was, I grew up not far from one cornfield away from the New York Central and the Pennsylvania Railroad tracks that ran through, northwest Indiana there through the Portage and Gary, Indiana area.
Let's talk about when you put together this final grand layout.
Mm-hmm.
What did you go with for a track selection, and did you integrate command control into this layout?
Well, the new layout I planned for many years. I collected and planned and sketched, and when I finally had the opportunity to build the room, I wanted to make sure that the room had tall enough ceilings so that I could have skyscrapers that were 6-7 feet tall, and I didn't want any supports in the way anywhere in the room, and so the room is completely clear of supports. When I designed the track plan, at the time, in the past, I used Gargraves and Ross switches for my first layout, or the layout just prior to this one, and I was perfectly happy with that selection. But when I planned this one, I guess I probably would have gone with Gargraves and Ross again, but I didn't this time because I saw Atlas and I thought, well, I already know what Ross and Gargraves are like, and I liked them. I wanted to see, how Atlas would work for me, so I bought a little bit of Atlas and tried it, and I liked it. And so I thought, well, this time on this layout, I'll go with that track system. So, not because I didn't like the others, but, I like the Atlas also. So it's all Atlas track. I have about 85 Atlas switches, and all of them work fine. I have all of the different brands of command control. So I have, of course, the MTH DCS system, and I have Lionel's TMCC, as well as their latest legacy control system. And I've got it wired, so if I don't want to use command, I can easily use traditional track-powered control, transformer control, or control the track power from any of the remotes. So I've kind of adopted everybody's system, and I'm perfectly happy, doing so. And that kind of pretty much tells it in a nutshell there.
You have some very specific scenes on your layout. You have a really beautiful harbor scene, coal mines, and then your city scenes are just absolutely out of this world. Tell me a little bit about how you created those scenes, and obviously knowing that you have an architectural background now helps me understand a little bit more. But tell me how you created those and what you've learned along the way.
Well, I don't know if this is just something that people that are like, well, I don't know how to say it. I have the ability to look at something for whatever reason, even if it is a non-traditional item, and look and see if it could be used for another purpose. And like I started to say, I don't know if that's just something that has been that I was taught to do when I majored in architecture, or if was something I was born with or whatever. But bottom line, as I created a lot of the skyscrapers, and the large buildings on the layout, many of those buildings are made from repurposed items that when I looked at them, I could see that if I did just a little bit of altering and kit bashing, I could have a large building or a large structure or skyscraper or whatever. Many of the buildings in the city scenes are also made up of old antique building kits that I acquired a variety of different ways, including eBay. There's some girder and panel sets that have been combined together in some interesting configurations to make large structures. There's some American skyline sets made by a company called Elgo in the 1950s and early 60s that I've used and altered to make them work in specific scenes that I've got. There are, I took a Timex watch cabinet, and by gutting out the turntable, I used the turntable on the inside of the watch cabinet, put it on the top of the cabinet to simulate an elevator and mechanical structure on top, and then lined the interior with reflective window material, film, reflective film, and then outlined the floors with automobile tape and put lights inside of it, and it looks like a skyscraper, but it was really a watch cabinet. And I have an innumerable number of buildings like that I have made from, like I said, repurposed items, all the way to totally scratch building an item, right? A building or a structure right from just the typical traditional materials that modelers use. So it's kind of a variety of different things that I've put together to simulate or put in the mind's eye when somebody views the layout, kind of what the story that I'm trying to tell in that scene. Harbors, you ask about the harbors. Of course, I guess I might say that I probably am somewhat influenced by a great HO modeler by the name of John Allen, because he was great at doing city scenes, and so I think part of that is inside of me. Maybe a little bit of what he did has influenced me. But on the harbor scenes, most of those harbor scenes are just pieces of shower door glass that you literally you can buy it in several different patterns. And if you ever look at shower door glass, it sort of looks like water rippling, And the way I modeled a water scene using shower door glass is I don't paint the glass, even though that certainly is a method that works really well, and I believe Dennis Brennan explained how he does that in his book. But I found that in my particular instance, I don't paint the bottom of the glass. I just leave the glass alone, and I mount the glass on a frame, and then on that frame is a sheet of 1/8 inch smooth masonite that I paint the colors that I want. Then I just set the glass on top of that, and it gives it a little bit more depth for deeper harbor scenes. So that's how I make those scenes. They're pretty simple. Anybody can do it.
If you just look around your house, there's so many things that can be repurposed, and I love hearing the stories about how, the Timex watch case, shower door glass. You made a post on the O-Gauge forum earlier this year about, I think, taking some kind of bowl or plate and flipping that around and making it the top of a skyscraper, and it looks amazing.
Yeah, I have to give my wife a little credit here. I was looking for a finial, you might say, the top of many buildings from the 70s on up. Many of those buildings have some sort of a statement on the top of them, and so she's had a Jello mold, and I'm looking at this Jello mold, and she says, "Hey, that might work." So I painted it and turned it. If you were going to empty the Jello out of it after it's set, I turned it that way, set it on top of the building, and it looks fine. It looks just like something that you might see, very similar to the Chrysler Building in New York. Some finial or final tower on top of a modern skyscraper.
One thing I hope our listeners take away from this today is this emphasis on look around your workshop, look around your house. There are a lot of great items. I've seen everything from toilet tank floats to Jello molds to everything else under the sun get used for a layout. And if you get creative, you never know what you're going to come up with. And I think you've illustrated that really, really well on your layout. And I think our listeners will be able to see that in the pictures. What's your favorite part of your layout right now?
I think probably the favorite part of my layout is the downtown scene that I'm still working on. Those people that have seen the pictures and those folks that are far better modelers than me know that I have still a long way to go. I've got a lot of weathering and aging to do on the layout and details that need to be added. But my favorite part would be the downtown area where the elevated line is. I do have a subway I'm working on that's under the city that really I haven't done a whole lot with lately, but the elevated part of the subway system is in fact pretty much complete. There's a few more things I need to do to it, some railing and some walkways to add and some weathering, but I really love looking at that, particularly when you've got your eyes at the proper height or level with respect to the scene, and you're looking at the automobiles and the people walking down the sidewalks and the L and all the structure up above, just exactly the way I remembered it in Chicago, and of course probably very much like people remember in other cities that have elevated systems downtown. We have a excellent's not even the right word. We have an expert modeler that contributes to the forum and recently has been contributing a little bit more by the name of Joseph Frank, and he is into, you might say, way into producing elevated scenes and elevated modeling to the ultimate. And so I have an affinity to that, and I like that part of the layout probably better than anything else.
Very neat. One of the things, two quick questions about the layout. Number one, can you tell me approximately, I guess the right word would be deck height to the layout in terms of where does the base of the table sit height-wise? I'm just curious.
Okay. The main part, most of the main lines sit at the 40, let me see here, 45, I believe 45, 44 inches.
Okay.
Yeah. And then they go up from there.
Okay, and then what is the max height on the layout with some of the skyscrapers added? Because the pictures I've seen, my guess is the layout gets at least over 7 feet at some places.
Oh, well, the layout itself doesn't reach 7 feet, but the ceiling height of the room is about 10.5 feet on average. There is a slight slope. So at one end, in order to drain water, it's a little bit lower than that, and at the other end, it's about 11 feet. So the average is about 10.5 feet. So if you subtract roughly, some of those skyscrapers are about 6 feet tall or a little bit more, then that would be the highest level in the city part of the layout, or the main downtown area. So, you're looking at somewhere right around, the main part is 44 inches or so, or 43 inches, something like that. And then the uppermost level is perhaps 10 inches or something like that higher, or 8 inches or so higher than that, or approximately a foot. It's somewhere in that. I've really never measured it, because the way I build, I just kind of look at an area and I imagine what I would like to have, and I might sketch it out real quick. I kind of go old world, even though I have a CAD program. I'm still of the probably still old world type of designer. I just kind of take a notebook and I sketch out what I want, and then I make sure that all the clearances are enough so that trains can go under it if they need to, through any tunnel portals, and then the final height is determined kind of by that. So, yeah, the skyscrapers are quite tall, and the ceiling in the room is quite tall. But I did that on purpose so I could have some commanding buildings. When you walk through the aisles on my layout, particularly one aisle, there's city on both sides. On one side, there's almost 30 feet of skyscrapers.
Wow.
And then on the other side, there's, I made it so it looks like you're walking in a river channel, okay? And so you're sort of like the Chicago River. You're looking on either side, and you see all these skyscrapers on both sides. And so you get that feel, particularly in one area of the layout.
Talking about the future of this layout, what ideas are you still kind of rolling around in your head that you would like to incorporate into the future of this layout?
Well, there's several things I'd like to have on the layout, but I'm at the point now, and people can tell you that have visited, and people that have seen the pictures, it's definitely busy. and there's not a lot of real estate left to add anything, but I do envision myself over time now, particularly since there are so many fine modelers that contribute to our forum and to our magazine. I've learned so much from those guys and gals that participate every day with us. And, all I can say is there are several places on my layout that I'll probably go back and improve. We'll put it that way. Probably more accurately destroy and rebuild because maybe it didn't come out quite as good as it should. And there's so many people that have helped me become a little better every year at what I'm doing on this layout. I'm a long ways from being what I would call a top-notch modeler, but I try, and the layout really does look better in pictures than it does in person, I guess. But I thank everybody out there that has helped and made suggestions and inspired. My current refinery that I have on the layout, I was inspired by several people on the forum that have refineries, and that made me want one. So I went off and built one.
There you go. You're listening to Al and Arnold on the Notch 6 online podcast. I'm going to ask you a tough question here. Out of your entire collection, can you pick a favorite train?
Well, if you by train, do you mean locomotive? Is that what you're saying, or?
You know what? I'll give you
Okay.
a little bit of a broad range here. You can either pick a locomotive, or you can pick an entire passenger consist. How's that?
Well, of course, I like all trains. I have a lot of passenger equipment. Probably I enjoy the passenger equipment more than anything else, even though I find myself actually running probably more freight trains. But I don't know. It's really hard, Derek, to answer that question. So it is a hard question. I guess if I were to answer it just quickly, I've always had the GG1, I guess, is close to my heart. I do like the looks of that locomotive, but I think part of the reason is I always admired Raymond Loewy, and I just absolutely think that his designs were stunning for the most part. So the GG1 probably would be one of my favorites, if not my favorite. But, oh heavens, the list is so long. You could name a passenger train, and I would say, oh yeah, that one is my favorite. Then you'd probably come up with another one, and I'd say, well, I forgot about that one. So it is hard.
If we were all forced to pick just one, there's no way any of us would have these collections, because let's be honest, none of us can pick just one.
No, it's just too hard. I mean, that's what happened. I ended up, because I liked so many, I ended up collecting way too many. And so now, even though I still have way too many right now, I don't have as many as I used to. And a few years ago, I thinned out my collection and sold a lot of it, and that helped me build the current layout that I've got right now.
Right. Let's switch gears a little bit, and let's talk about your day job now. What is it exactly that you do for O-Gauge Railroading Magazine?
Well, I'm their advertising sales manager. Primarily what I do, what I'm trying to do is I have a great love for this hobby. I just absolutely think it's the best thing on the planet. And one of the neat things about working for OGR is all of the guys and gals that work for OGR are trained people. They are folks that love the hobby. So I'm in a unique situation where I have what is called by many people the dream job. I've got a job now that actually I get up in the morning, and for the most part I walk about 100 feet from my bedroom to my office, and get to talk to people all over the country about trains and how we can spread the word, and how we can help the hobby itself, and how we can help those that are trying to make a living at the hobby stay in business, and how we can offer those people that want to be part of the hobby and enlarge their collections and enhance their experience, how we can make it better for them too. So that's what I get to do, and I'm in charge of that, and so it's like, when am I going to wake up from this dream? It's just absolutely fantastic.
Now, something that I really want to hone in on here for a few minutes, and I think that's important. If our listeners follow O-Gauge Railroading Magazine at all, it's been a very aggressive year of growth for the magazine. And something that you and I talk about a lot in our own business relationship is the future of O-Gauge media in general, but let's specifically talk about O-Gauge Railroading here for a minute. How is the magazine preparing for the future of media?
Well, I'm in a unique position where my background and some of the duties that I had with Gannett involved not only print, which to most people is the traditional form to promote this hobby, but I also was a advertising manager for television, as well as radio, and then finally online, particularly website design and website promoting using websites, e-commerce sites. So, like I said, I've got the unique, I had the unique opportunity to be involved in all those things, and all of them have a place in today's market, every one of them. But as all of us know, our society is migrating more and more toward technology that involves more than just print. And it is no secret that magazines of all types, it doesn't matter if it's in our hobby or if it's, any topic, the type of print advertising commitments that clients have been willing to make in the past, they've got far more choices now. And some of those choices include online. And so our approach now, and we've been doing this quite rapidly for those of you that have noticed, we are developing opportunities and choices for those people that are trying to earn a living in this hobby. We're offering online opportunities on the forum. We're expanding, which you are in charge of. As a matter of fact, I hope I can say that. You can, I think most people know.
Yeah, we can talk about that.
Okay, I was going to say, I think most people know now that when you and I met, I hired you to head up our Facebook page. I believe that is social media is something that is extremely important in today's society, to get the word out and to help promote what the hobby is about and what we're trying to do. And so our emphasis is now a combined front, of online, print, and various other forms of social media, and perhaps someday with Rich's background and the other companies that he's involved in, even television is something that could be something that we will look at somewhere down the line. But it's something that I feel will not only help the hobby, but will help keep OGR itself solvent, and we'll be able to continue to offer the magazine as well as the forum and the other forums that we are offering, like our Facebook page and other things in the future that we're already talking about. With that type of effort, we're going to be around for a very, very long time. And I think we're in tune with what's going on in the hobby as well as what's going on as far as promoting the hobby.
We'll start to kind of wind it down on this question, but I think this is an important question. You're kind of the man out on the street right now in terms of you talk to a lot of people that are involved in this hobby. What kind of feeling do you get from the OGR advertisers and people in the hobby in general about the future of O-gauge trains?
Well, I've talked to an awful lot of people, and it's interesting. Some of the I ask that question quite often because I want to know what my clients are thinking and their needs, and so I have a whole bevy of questions that I ask them a lot of times from how do you see the market going to how is your particular market going for your shop or for your business. And I get a lot of different answers. I can tell you that the trend seems to be upward. Now, it's not like a steep rock climbing type of upward trend. It's a gradual upward trend. And I think a lot of that has to do with either a real improvement in the economy or a perceived improvement in the economy. We certainly have people out there that have disposable income to spend on this hobby. And I think that I'm hearing from a lot of the businesses out there that they're having to learn new ways of promoting. The traditional way still works. Nothing wrong with the traditional way of promoting yourself. But because an awful lot of buying is taking place now using the internet, a lot of the businesses out there are finding out that a good website is something that's absolutely necessary. E-commerce site preferably. And I don't know, I just have a positive feeling about it. I've had, and I'm not trying to, put rosy-colored glasses on this. We have a job to do out there to keep this going. On a daily basis, we hear about another hobby shop closing, and that certainly is, unsettling. But many times there's a lot of reasons why those hobby shops close that some of them we can attribute to maybe the market changing somewhat, or perhaps, there were other reasons why the shop closed. But the bottom line is, while I do get a few of those where people are saying, well, gosh, it's just tough out there, it's hard to compete, I have an awful lot of folks that say, hey, I'm seeing an improvement. There's more orders this year than last year, and there were more orders last year than the year before. So I think generally, overall, I think we have a pretty bright future. I'm kind of one of those guys that thinks that the glass is half full. So I really think things are going to be okay, and at least in my lifetime, and probably most of the people that are involved in the hobby now, it's going to be around, but it may be a little different. It's going to evolve, and you just have to. We all have to kind of evolve with it.
Alan, if there's somebody who's listening to this show that's involved in the industry and wants to talk a little bit more about ideas that they have to expand their media reach, or wants to talk about opportunities to work with O-Gauge Railroading, what's the best way to get a hold of you?
Well, you can call into the office. That's always an option, or you can get in touch with me directly because most of the time I'm not in the office. As a matter of fact, as I alluded to earlier in this interview, I actually live in Arkansas. I do some traveling for OGR, but for the most part, I'm available at any time. All you have to do is just call my cell number, and you can get that cell number by just calling into the office. Just call directly into the office, and they'll either transfer you to me, or you can ask for my cell number, and they'll give you my cell number. But of course, the office number is an 800 number, 800-980-6477. And of course, that 6477 stands for OGRR.
Very nice. Very nice. You've been listening to Alan Arnold, the ad man from O-Gauge Railroading Magazine. Alan, hey, thanks so much for sharing with us about your layout and your collection, and also the work you do for O-Gauge Railroading Magazine. And we will make sure to get some photos of Alan's layout up on our Facebook page, which is facebook.com/notch6, to go over and check it out, and you can see some of the amazing work he's doing. Thanks again, Alan. We appreciate it.
Well, thanks a lot, Derek, and I want to thank every one of our members that participate on the forum, and all of our sponsors and advertisers. Without you all, we wouldn't have OGR, and we do appreciate all of you, and we sincerely and deeply thank all of you.
Thanks for listening to Notch 6, the only podcast dedicated to O-Gauge trains. You can find every episode on our website, notch6.com, or on iTunes and Stitcher. We'll see you again soon. Until then, be sure to keep it in Notch 6. The following has been a production of Notch 6 Media and is intended for private use only. This show may not be copied or redistributed without express written consent. This show copyright 2014, all rights reserved.